Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome from the Butler Gallery here in Kilkenny, Ireland. My name is Alan Kerwin. I'm the Learning and Public Engagement Curator for the Gallery, and I'm delighted to be able to introduce today's special event for St. Patrick's Day, the Soundscapes of WolfWalkers. We're joined today by the national and international award-winning band Kíla, who produced the soundtrack to the movie. We'll also be joined by some of the very talented sound engineers who contributed to the film. The panel will be in discussion with Anne Mulrooney, who is the studio manager at Cartoon Saloon. As I'm sure you know, WolfWalkers is the latest movie from the Kilkenny-based animation studio Cartoon Saloon under the creative direction of Tom Moore and Ross Stewart. The film itself is actually based in 17th century Ireland, Kilkenny to be exact, and it's based during the Cromwellian period. And it tells the magical story of two young girls, an Irish and an English girl, who form a friendship during the period of the destruction or annihilation of the last wild wolf packs in the country. The gallery here at Butler Gallery, we're delighted to be able to team up with Cartoon Saloon in showing the original artwork that contributed to the making of the film. At the moment, you can see the exhibition online. We have a virtual tour in 360. If you go to butlergallery.ie, you can get to see some of that fantastic drawing and illustration work. So I think at this point, without further ado, I will hand over to Anne to begin the conversation. Thank you and enjoy.
Thanks, Alan, and big thanks also to Animation Ireland and Screen Skills Ireland for their support of this talk series. So today, as Alan says, we're looking at Soundscapes, and we're joined by Sébastien, Philippe and Brian from Piste Rouge Studio, who were involved in the sound design and the beautiful soundscapes of the film, and also with four members of Kíla, who have a long relationship with Cartoon Saloon at this point, and making some incredible music for us over the years. We're going to start with the sound design part of the process, because I don't know that it's something that people think about a lot, but actually the sound from the music to the background noises do a huge amount to actually immerse people into the film and into the story. So I wonder if we can start with you, Sébastien, if you would explain a little bit about Piste Rouge's role, your role in the film, and also the process that you started with.
Okay. Piste Rouge's role is to make all the post-production, sound edit and mixing. So, and I was the supervising sound editor for the film. So, and all the crew with Philippe and all the sound editors working on the movie. So at the beginning, the first things we need to have a meeting with the directors to watch the film. This is the first thing we need to have. And we have it with Tom and Ross, I think in December or January, I don't remember. Mm-hmm. And we watch the film together and just have a talk about what is the main theme movie, you know, they want to hear or they want to have for this movie. Okay, we have it. And after, first of all, the first job is to check what we need for this movie, like sound, you know, like animals, wolf, birds, and things like that. So we check. Okay, we need to have a medieval sound, crowds or things like that. Wolves, animals, we check if we have it, what we need to record. And after, the artistic and creative sound process is starting with all the team.
So can I check there, are they French birds or Irish birds that are in the background sounds?
Yeah. There is not really Irish birds, you know, because this is European birds, because in Ireland, we have almost all the same birds we have in Europe, you know.
So was that something that you actually needed to research in order to develop the soundscapes?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Actually, every time we, for instance, we want to the birds, for instance, to sound real in the real soundscape of the where the story is happening, actually. So we always check, first of all, if we do not make errors, but of course we always need to cheat a little bit. It means that for instance, for the bird Merlin, who's a very nice character here in the movie, we don't have enough with what the real bird produces with the sound produced by the real bird. So we have to, we have to cheat a little bit and change and mix different sounds together to create a new one that seems real, that sounds real actually to our ear.
And to have empathy, because the relationship between Robin and Merlin is like a friendship, like human to human, So to create this human empathy between together, we need to, but real sound of birds, we need to modify and change a little bit things like sometimes.
Yes, and create a real like vocabulary
exactly.
of the for the birds.
A real conversation between.
Yeah. And actually the same for wolves and all the animals here in this particular movie.
So that sounds like quite an intense connection into the story of the film. So you get very involved in that aspect of it.
Yes, actually, even on the, I mean, the work on the backgrounds and everything, there's a storytelling in our work as well. So, for instance, here we have almost two different parts, which are from one side the city and on the other side the forest, and they've been treated like a real character, like another character in the movie. With each space has its own personality, and yeah, we of course we have the images to help us understand where we are and everything. But as you said, for the immersive, the sound backgrounds are very good way to get more immersion in the different spaces.
That idea of town and village, or town and forest having their own sounds and being almost like their own characters. I wonder, actually, Kíla, could we ask you about that as well? When you are coming to the composition, are there particular motifs for each of those? And because there's four of you, I'm not sure who to ask.
Well, you just have to take a shot.
Okay, Rossa, you pretty much put your hand up there.
Okay, well, the motifs, I mean, it's a collaboration really, and we have to mention Bruno, who scored all the classical pieces. He has to be really he's done a lot more in the composition here, and we're brought in with compositions that we the flavors we can bring to it as well. So it really is a collaboration. So in terms of the motifs, they'll be started off often by Bruno, or he will suggest, I said, this be a lovely place to have something soft, and so because our tradition is very much Irish music, we'll come up with something like that, and he's expecting that in a way. But in terms of obviously there are the darker animals will be darker sounds, and the brighter, happier animals won't be dark sounds. That answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian, if I could come to you, what is your role in this kind of collaborative process that's happening between the research and the soundscapes? The musicians are starting to compose. Bruno Coulet has started his work. Where do you come into this process?
In fact, at this moment, I was just arriving at the end of the project, but I was aware of what was going on. But Christine, who was here to coordinate all the things, because it's it was a strange period. The sound design started exactly on our first lockdown in France and Belgium. So strangely, we had more time to get involved on this, to get the richest materials for the movie. So basically, Sébastien and Philippe will talk about it better than I, but they started without the music. They had Rush and stuff, of course, but they wanted to make it unique with the sound design, and they involved also the mixer, Fabien, to be here since the beginning, to drive a little bit between the music and the sound design. So it was his role to really merge it together and have one singularity, and that's it. So basically, we were exchanging intentions regarding the sounds with the with the music team. But on the other hand, because it was a strange period and stuff, we were obligated to talk even with the music part, but also with the directors a lot more. So when we sent, by the way, sequences of sound design, it was almost mixed, because we wanted the directors and the music department to hear the most of it, because it was not in Dolby Atmos when we checked it and stuff. So it has to be checked in stereo. So yeah, it was really, really intense, but really nice. And I think Sébastien and Philippe will rejoin me on this. The organization was like pretty similar to a really huge movie, with everybody separating tasks and stuff. We had people on the sound design only doing the birds, and also only doing the wolves and the sword and stuff. So yeah, it was really nice.
Excellent. If I remember correctly, the Kíla's musical elements had just been recorded just before lockdown happened. I remember Tom and Ross going to spend time with you all was it Grouse Lodge? Ronan, do you want to talk a little bit about that, about the process of actually recording that with Tom and Ross there, how that works?
It's great, actually. It's great to have them there, because sometimes recording, interesting listening to the lads, some of those jobs might help to be in isolation to create or to fully focus. Whereas for us, we focus when we're in company, or when we're, dissecting or gauging noises. So to have them there when we were recording, it meant we got much quicker to the point, because I suppose with music, you start out with a theme or an idea or a hint or an instrument or some kind of aim. But because you're going from the start to a point, there's a lot of decisions you can make on the way. You can change your intonation, you can change pace, you can change everything. But you can feel a bit lost unless somebody, like, you can do something, come into the studio and go, all right, Ross, what do you think of this idea? And then you're immediately making that decision. So you're further down the road. Whereas when we record and then we send stuff, because we did a lot of that early on in January. We watched the film a lot of times, recorded, just to grasp at whatever we could find within ourselves. We had a studio in Bray at the time, and we did a lot of preliminary recordings. Like, it'd be like, pretend, let's play make believe, and you do preliminary just for yourself to guide you and go, all right, that resonates, that doesn't, drop that. But to have everybody there in this big studio, it made it all feel cohesive. Everybody became a team. And that's a lovely thing, because nobody gets trapped in themselves. Because Bruno is great at navigating musicians. He's an expert at it. Musicians are great at navigating music. If let, and then Tom and Stuart, they're the experts. They're making everything, so it was kind of perfect. It really worked.
I think also you have a long relationship with Tom and Ross as well, which helps. Tom in particular,
yes.
I guess.
Yes.
And can I just ask about that? So this is the third film that you've actually created music for. And Tom refers to them as a trilogy. Do they feel like a trilogy musically?
Well, we have come up 3 steps. I haven't pieced them together. Maybe some of the lads have another idea on that. I was just dealing with what's in front of me, you know.
Colin, what do you think?
I think it has to be longer than a trilogy. It has to be a triple trilogy. I don't know. They're not quite linked together. I know Aisling from Secret of Kells was on the bus in she was on the bus in Song of the Sea. I don't know if she's in this film. I haven't seen her yet. I'm sure she is. So in that way, maybe it is a trilogy. Maybe in Tom's head, I don't know. I suppose it depends on where his next idea brings him. Whether it might come straight back to Ireland, it might go somewhere else.
So you're
so
not thinking. You're not thinking when you're composing the music for it. You're not thinking of particular motifs as far back as the Secret of Kells. Then you're looking purely at WolfWalkers and the characters there.
Yeah. It's exactly whatever is in front of you. You have to serve the film that's in front of you. You have to serve the pictures in front of you. Whatever came before, it doesn't really. I suppose it counts because it's in your back of your head. Sorry, Ro.
They're also different dates. You see, we had to take that in consideration. I met Colin and Bray, and he said, I said, what date is the film? It's 1601 or 16. And I went, all right, but what instruments, what noise, what did that sound like? But in the Secret of Kells, that was like in the year 400 or 800 AD or whatever you call it. Do you know? So you're in a different time. It's hard. Sonically, it's hard to think of it as a trilogy when you're time hopping.
That's a really interesting point, that you think about the instruments of the time of the film. And I know that you're all multi-instrumentalists. So I did ask if you would maybe bring some of your instruments this morning just to give us a look and maybe a sound of the kinds of instruments that you used in the film. We might start with James on that one because the uilleann pipes is such a unique instrument, but mightn't be familiar to lots of people. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, James?
Yeah, well, the uilleann pipes are the native Irish bagpipes, and they're the most sophisticated bagpipes in the world. But they're, when we think of bagpipes, there are bagpipes all over the world. But these ones are not what you would necessarily think of when your first image, because you don't blow into them with your mouth. You use a bellows to pump them, which looks a little bit like this. So it's like something you'd use to get a fire going. But in my case, it's to get some music going, and you tie it around your waist, and you play the instrument using the bellows, and it's I suppose it's recognized as the Irish organ. This instrument did feature in the WolfWalkers film at the end, and we like Ronan was saying about what instruments are relevant to the time. This instrument would not have been hugely relevant at the time, but to nod to it, like speaking about the trilogy aspect as well, musically there are certain flavors or sounds and stuff that carry through the 3 films, and so the pipes are apparent right the way through, I believe, and so a little bit of pipes here and there. So I thought I'd just give you a little example of what they sound like, and I might play. Would it be okay with you guys if I played the tune from the end of the film? So I'll just grab the rest here. I'm going to sit back a little bit away from the screen so you can see. Little morning demonstration of the pipes. And the melody is played on an instrument called the chanter, which comes from the French word to sing. So ici le chanteur. So. How does it go? I've forgotten. Okay, cool. Okay, so.
Amazing. Thank you.
Woo.
Ronan, I saw that you had an instrument that you were.
Well, you're in my house now. This is my little instrument. I just play this to keep myself company. I generally don't take it out. It stays in here when I'm watching telly or something, you know. I play you something for it. But so it is quite beautiful, but I just play that for myself. It's interesting. I'm a baritone player. I'm surrounded by really gifted musicians. Sometimes I have private things like this that I play just for myself, you know, for my own melodies, because I can't hold the tune like the rest of the lads, you know. I've got a great imagination though. But about the thing with the date, so I remember we recorded some things. I found this drum from 1765, 1767 or sometime like that. It's a big drum. It's an old drum from the Bray Municipal Band. I think they just had it since then. But we started, so the goat skins were from them. So I suppose I spent a lot of time with this drum. We had it in the studio, so we recorded a lot out of that. I suppose trying to, you know, you'll try anything. For me, I'll try anything to try and get into the 1600s and try and get my sound or smell or something. Go, all right, I'm starting from here. Not I, but that we can all look at it from, we're at this point. But even like Sebastian said, you have to cheat a little bit. It is a circus. We're not doing reenactments, you know what I mean? But you need to touch down into the place where the film is based. Kilkenny, way back then. What did it smell like, you know? What were the sounds, kind of thing. Yeah, you have to imagine this. And then you're reaching for melody or responding to the cartoon.
Rossa, you have a whole wall of instruments there behind you. Did any of them feature in WolfWalkers?
Well, I can't remember at this stage, but that's the bouzouki. Yeah, all the strings have fucking come off them. Senan will be playing in Irish form. That's a Greek bouzouki there. This is the lute. I can't remember if we got the lute in there. The bandurria, that has a very particular sound. I'm gonna get it. I guess a lovely sound here, but it's and that sets you back. That tuning sets you right back to. Well, you know, it suggests early music, but I mean, whether it's they were playing that in early music or not, it's a Spanish instrument, and it's not tuned like that. It's tuned differently. It's pipa. Well, the strings are gone here. That's a Chinese instrument that didn't feature. They didn't have pipas in the 1600s, but in Ireland anyway. But you know, if it kind of resonated, if it sounded like a quirky sound and it worked, we'd have no qualms as to where to use it. You do know what a guitar sounds like. Mandolin again. So there you are. There's some of those sounds. You know, if we go over here, we can start playing with some more instruments. This is a banjolin and a violin. I'm sure you know what a violin sounds like. And that's yeah, you know, there's everything's useful if it works, and it's useless if it doesn't work. And the arbiters of whether it works or not is the people sitting around looking at it against the pictures. And that's what becomes, you know, and if we find it believable, then it probably is believable. Really, that's often what it is.
Colm, I don't know if you were able to bring a musical instrument out with you. You're sitting in the car for a quiet space to talk to us.
Yeah, I didn't bring anything. I could run in, but I'd probably get cut off. But I played a flute mostly, but James has one, and maybe he could show it as well, or whistles, or as the lads say, you can choose anything. We've gathered a lot of instruments over the last 30 years. So when we go to the studio with everybody set out, we basically set out, you know, there's probably 200-300 instruments, 200 instruments, and you pick it up and bash it. But going back to what you were saying, Rona was talking about instruments from the era. I got a loan of an instrument called a racket, and it's a small little tubby instrument about 6 inches high, and it's from the era, and I had great ideas for it, but in the end I couldn't actually play it very well, so it didn't feature. But it was a good idea. But it was a really quirky little thing, and I spotted it on a YouTube clip where two people were harmonizing off each other. It was really nice, and that's I met the woman, I've forgotten her name, but she was out in Sutton, and I drove out, and she was a member of the Irish Early Music Society, and they would get together with these rackets and all these quirky instruments and play this beautiful music. But I'm afraid the fingers here they couldn't manage the racket.
It's cool to hear it though, because that does give you a sense as well of what you bring back to the instruments that you normally play.
Yeah, it's any instrument has a different flavor or a different sound, and it's, I suppose, in a way, when you're working with film, or even when we're working with you're painting with music almost. You're looking for different colors, you're looking for different feelings or emotions, you're looking for something that will make the piece of music unique to itself, or else unique to the film. For example, Ronan was talking last night about the song at the end as they're traveling away in the caravan, and he was saying, when we were in the studio in January, we'd recorded, and we found it very lethargic or a bit heavy and too slow, and we were trying to put a bit of life on it. But once you put it up against the screen and picture it, it was actually perfect. It was the weirdest thing. So sometimes the color that you're looking for hourly, purely in the studio, is not the color that it needs to be put with something in the screen. Because when you're looking at something on the screen, that's overwhelmingly the majority, overwhelmingly the largest sense, I suppose, here, and all the sound between the sound design and the, you know, the sound, all this beautiful beautiful picture.
I'm just thinking about that scene now, and how beautiful the music is in that. It's such a lovely, warm ending to the film.
Yeah, and funny enough, and the reel afterwards, I'll tell you where it came from. So generally, as a musician, we're like magpies. So we're walking around the world, and suddenly we hear, it's not that we see, we hear shiny things, like a sound or a chord, or a piece of music coming from a radio in a restaurant, or you know, that's how I am. So the phone is my little tape recorder, and Rasa and Senan were backstage. You know, we were playing this kind of. It was probably a bit grubby. It was a laneway in Mulgar, and the sound was really loud and it was very nasty. It was kind of a nightclub gig, so maybe a couple of hundred people who were fairly well on, and so loud gig. But in the sound check, Rasa and Senan started playing this kind of a counterpointal thing between in E minor to D, which is we play a lot, or E minor seems to suit me. So I recorded it, kept it in my head for years. And then when we were coming up to this, I kept saying, these are the chords, this counterpointal thing, when the mandolin and the mandola play off each other, it's gorgeous. It's kind of the planksty thing, you know, the bouzouki and the mandolin. So that's what fed into that song, and the reel afterwards. They're essentially variants of each other. So sorry, that's took a digression there.
No, that's a really lovely thought, the idea of a sound scrapbook. And I think probably that's very connected to how Tom and Ross work as visual artists as well, that they're constantly collecting and storing these different images and shapes and forms and ideas, and that then find full expression. And I'm just wondering if we can go back to Sebastian and Philippe for a moment, because during this process, what must have been happening is Kíla are working on the music, and then you're receiving elements of music to kind of look at with your soundscape. And how did you find that? Did you respond well to what you were being sent? Did you feel like it was fitting in with the themes?
Yes, so for my part of the job, actually, it's very important to have like temp music during the whole process, because when you start to edit sound, you want the soundtrack to be something very, very nice. I mean, there should be a nice balance between music, sound, sound effects, sound, I mean, backgrounds, and you don't want them to fight each other. Sometimes, of course, there are some scenes that need a little bit of fight between music and sounds, and then directors and the re-recording mixer have to choose between one of them, put them a little bit in front or in the back. But here it was very nice to have quite quickly the final music, I would say, because it just gave us inspiration, and
exactly the music give us some ideas, sound ideas,
of course,
you know,
of course,
and
like
the ideas we complete together, you know, and not fighting.
Yes, and it's like even with the drawing, when you see and how beautifully animated is the movie, is that it just it gives energy to each department here. And I felt like, especially in this movie, music was feeding sound design was feeding the movie, the drawing was feeding everything. So there was a very nice
direction.
The direction, the very nice exchange between all the different parts of the soundtrack and the movie as well. Even if we haven't met in real, this is the first time we actually see each other. I mean, the music department and sound editing department. So, hi guys. But I think that's really important to have this kind of exchange. I mean, artistical exchange during the whole process of.
And it's funny because we don't have the same tools, you know, but we do the same job. We need to find texture, particular sounds, or things like that, feeling moods, you know.
Yeah, and actually there's something that just pops into my mind right now, because we had some other interview with the animation team, and actually animation was handmade, like 2D drawing, like old-fashioned way. Music sounds to be also being recorded handmade, and it's the same for us for the sound. And that's maybe something that is the power of this movie soundtrack, is that there's nothing artificial. Of course, there's the I'd say the finalization of the soundtrack is made digitally, but I feel like everything was handmade and nothing artificial, only natural. For instance, even for the sound, we only used natural sound. The forests were real forest that one of the sound editor here recorded himself. Wolves were recorded by Sebastian some times ago. Yeah, and just natural things getting together, and
even the magical
the magical elements were also like really real things. Like
we try to keep the natural feeling, of the movie, even on the magic with the magical things.
Yeah. And maybe that's why everything works so well together, in my opinion, here on this movie.
Yeah, that's a lovely thought. A lot of integrity right through then. Rosalind, can I ask you, I know that Bruno Coulet also worked on composition of music on this film as with the other films. How did you find that process? Did Kíla and Bruno have a strong working relationship, or did he leave you to your own devices? What kind of interaction had you?
The interaction is very, 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 very easy. And the personalities match very well. He comes with an idea anyway. He has a score already created, and let's say when it was when we started with the first film. Now, the story there is very funny because we were asked for 10 years previous to the song to Secret of Kells coming out. He asked us. We were mentioned as the people who do the music, and then we got a call off Tom saying, "Listen, we can't. We needed finishing money, and the requirement was that we get a French composer." So we kind of lost the gig, and then it was Bruno who got the job, and he had rang up a couple of weeks later saying, "It needs an Irish feel. Do you know any band?" And they said, "Well, as it happens." So we had he came over, and about four or five of us went up to record in the studio that Dervish have in Sligo, and it was really interesting because we weren't actually looking at the footage at all. He was sending us in and said, "Can you try something here?" And we kept shooting in the dark, but there was an incredible ability to I don't know what's it not
telepathy. Telepathy.
There was a telepathy going on, and he's very encouraging, and he's very, very sensitive. So when he hears something that he likes, he's really, really he's really impressed that that's there, and so it's an incredible encouragement from someone so gifted when he likes something. I suppose he often doesn't get frowny when he doesn't like something. He just kind of says trying something else. So there's an amazing telepathy going on between us, and that continued then with the Song of the Sea, of course, and then into WolfWalkers, where we know the score, we know the routine. He calls us his Irish orchestra. It was amazing. You wouldn't know, but there was an awful lot of percussion. He wanted loads and loads of percussion and the sounds of feet, and where it isn't as obvious in the mix, but when you listen back, we were doing endless percussion. You see all these instruments, but there was drums, 8 of us sitting around, rumbling slowly, and he'd be kind of telling us, "Okay, now start getting higher and higher now." And there was tons of that. And he was kind of he was really, really happy with the speed at which we were working. He was like going, "All right, well, we'll just have all of this done before 11 o'clock. Then we can have tea," because I was expecting it would take till 5. So we're working really quickly with him anyway. And and he's very open to ideas as well, which is great.
Yeah,
I found very comforting. Just to add to that, was something that I found very comforting because I'm a new member in Kíla, so WolfWalkers was my first engagement. Well, it was my first engagement with Bruno because we did another project previous, but it was the first of the Cartoon Saloon projects, and he really offers a comfortable environment for you to explore your creativity, and he's very honest, you know. So you really you're in good hands, and like Rossa said, the relationship is it's a very warm and positive relationship because you know where you stand at all times, you know. So therefore, there's no discomfort in any way. So and then that of course leads to the process moving very smoothly and quickly.
We've been having this series of talks with various different team members who worked on different aspects of the film, the production, the animation, etc. And the theme that comes across again and again and again is how important communications are, because so much needs to be expressed and understood to make sure that everybody is actually understanding what the shared vision is, and everybody is going in the one direction. And I'm just wondering, have there been creative differences? And if there have, like how do they get resolved? You were saying, for example, Bruno is very open-minded, so, and there's a telepathic communication there. That's very helpful, but it's not always the case.
I suppose each difference is a different. Of course there is. Like if you're driving into town from here, you'll hit 25 traffic lights. And each traffic light is different, you know. So yeah, and I've seen him ditch whole sequences of his own orchestration for a little ditty that we're playing. But I've also seen him just knock our ditties out of it and go, no, like what he is thinking. Honest doesn't mean, oh, you look gorgeous today, thank you very much. It's like, no, you know what I mean? So, but like Jamie said, there is a comforting quality. He's got a remarkable, I don't know what the je ne sais quoi, but he does. You feel good in his company, you think, cool, we're in working mode here, and there's a trust. So he'll trust us so that the things we come up with are up to scratch. Like I said, I've seen him switch around and drop his things into a wastebasket and go, right, we're running with this then. And that's, I don't know, is that a week's work? He just, you know, but I've also seen him look at some of our work and go, nah, it's going nowhere. Like, and that's kind of great. We do that with each other, and it speeds up the work. You get working a lot quicker. Yeah, I see. Maybe there's a trust with musicians, or what the area you want to work in is some kind of a meritocracy. You know, like if the note fits, if the tune fits, that's kind of how we work. If you know what I mean, it's not because you haven't had a tune. Like if it's good enough, we'll do it. It works. If it's not, no, it's got a hole in the boat. It'll hit the sea. Do you know? So
yeah.
So
honesty is necessary for that to work then.
Vital. It's like salt with chips.
There was a moment where I think there was probably 16 or 17 people in the studio, and we were having a big discussion about the drum under a certain area, and I was really sold on the drum, the big drum being the sound of all the hooves. And it got very tense because I was really sold on it. Nobody else was. And it ended up being, I think Ross was even coming in on that one, saying, absolutely not, no way, that's overpowering it. And I was going, you need the power, they're wolves anyway. So, you know, there's an awful lot of that. And in the end, you know, it's amazing when you watch films because you don't notice the music, and that's when it's working. Because it's so, you know, it's funny because, you know, when you're only recording music, it's all about the impression that the music will make on you, but when you're recording to visuals, it's about the impression it subtly makes on you. That's always a difficulty as a musician, to flip your head around, you know.
Yeah, so it's actually quite challenging as well if you don't have I think it's easy to work if you've got the film in front of you and it's on a really big screen and you can kind of be absorbed in that. But when you're working blind, so to speak, that's quite challenging. Colin, do you want to say a little bit about what it's like just in responding to a film? And I know that it's not just Cartoon Saloon, you've done an awful lot of work with film and visual images over your years in Kíla.
Yeah. I think we rely an awful lot on our senses. We rely on our honesty, as Ronan said, and the willingness to be honest to each other, even if it's just a look to kind of go, not sure, you know. There's an awful lot of trust. There's an awful lot of, we expect all of us to be on top of our game. We expect each other to be able to respond instantly, especially, for example, in the studio with Bruno. Everyone has to be on top of the game, because if you delay in any way, you lose the momentum, and you've only 4 or 5 days, but in that environment. So you really have to be on it, and that's not necessarily with fingers, but certainly with your head. You have to be open. You have to be trustful. You have to be willing to share your musical stuff, even if it's going to be dismissed, as Ross has said. That you think this is the best idea in the whole world ever. Does nobody understand? And it actually isn't. As Ronan said, there's this scene where the sheep go mad. We call it sheep bedlam, and Bruno had a particular score with that. So, but we had an idea of singing this reel, Jamie's reel, and we thought it was hilarious. And there was a bit of discussion, maybe, and then Bruno said, "Yeah, actually, it works better." So there's no problem. That's the willingness to change, the willingness to be open, the willingness to stuff, not to be in any way attached to your ideas, if you know what I mean. The ideas are going into this space where everybody throws it around, devoted to the music, not to their own stuff. Nobody is. The term, it's actually it's I just say, I wish Cartoon Saloon would do a film every month and give it to us, because of how much
your sound is breaking down slightly, but we got the gist of that as we're talking. I think Cartoon Saloon also love working with Kíla. There's definitely a sense of a kind of a kindred spirit there. I'm just wondering, James, how challenging is it working with a band of brothers who potentially share telepathic communications?
Well, I remember the day very clearly of my first gig, and I was really, really nervous. And Colum's words, when I was just before the first gig, Colum was like, "It's grand, you've got it." And that is like, that was the well, not the very first, but one of the very first senses of the kind of support and team and family and artistic togetherness that Kíla is, where everybody has a creative voice, and everybody will get an honest response to it. So if you come up with a great idea, you'll be told it's a great idea. Everyone has a chance to express their ideas, and if it's a terrible idea, it'll be gently pushed aside for the moment and said, right, yeah. But a lot of the time we're kind of on track with good stuff, and so for me, no, it's quite a lovely thing, and I felt a bit nervous going into the WolfWalkers studio, but no, very, very quickly realized that sometimes I'm sure many musicians have felt this a slight kind of a boxing in, or a rigidity to being in the studio, and sometimes that's kind of hard to shake off, because the pressure of, we've only got a certain amount of time and we've got to get certain things done and all, and that can kind of infringe on your creativity a little bit. But during all of the recording processes that I've had with Kíla, I never suffered any of that kind of what I call studio boxy head kind of syndrome. It's always been very comfortable. So again, stepping back to the really, really comfortable environment to be in creatively and musically, and as a result of that, then we're making more music. We're making new music all the time, because it feels good to do it.
Great. Well, we are coming up to the end of this conversation, which actually could go on for hours, and you could have very rich conversations both around the process of sound design and around the musical and creative side of that. There's one thing that I want to ask all of you before we finish, and that's to tell me who your favorite character is in the film. So we'll start with you, Brian. You're on mute.
Yeah. It's quite complicated because the whole story is. I think the characters on their own are not so much as when they are together. So I'd say I had things also for the father, like the things, the fact that he's really engaged with his daughter, and all the sacrifices, and also the thing that the fact at the end that he emerged from all of this story, that was very powerful for me, for instance. But yeah, all of them have something to say, I think.
And for me, it's definitely Maeve, because she's got that kind of very positive, wild, and naive character personality.
And yeah,
they are beautiful, of course. Well, and yeah, she's just very
exactly.
Yeah, she's just like a very very nice natural character that hasn't been perverted by any cities or anything. She's just from the forest, and she's just a nice person. That's it. That's why I really like that character. I don't know if it's the same for you.
But this is the same for me. But Robin is nice too, you know, because she's a girl, and she fights for son. Sorry, what is a good word for?
What do you want to say?
Sa libération personnelle.
For her own freedom. Actually, she fights for her own freedom.
She's a girl, and she wants to be a wolf hunter, you know.
Yeah.
So at medieval time, it's not really normal, you know.
It's a girl power movie.
Exactly.
So very nice. We liked it very much.
James, how about you? Who is your favorite?
To support my fellow redhead Maeve.
Yeah.
He's a real rascal, a little wild ginger. You gotta love her.
I know that Kíla actually appeared as characters in the film, so you're not allowed to pick yourselves. Colm, who is your favorite?
Has to be me. I've got a hat full of gold. A hat full of gold. Where's my hat? Maeve, obviously, she's great. I love Robin as well, but Maeve is just wild. I love the nuttiness of it, yeah.
How about you, Rossa? Oh, Rossa, you're on mute.
What is it? The Lord Commander? If it wasn't for the Lord Commander, no one would like Maeve. I know Maeve, of course, Janie Mackers, but and without Maeve, see, Maeve creates Robin. Maeve creates Robin's father. Maeve creates, you know, she's it, you know. But you know, one of the other I loved, I think, was Tommy Tiernan's voice.
Yeah, Tommy Tiernan's character.
Yeah, the farmer, he was deadly. The guy in the stocks.
Ronan, what do you reckon?
Exact same as Ross has said there, yeah.
Very good, very good. I like Maeve's mammy myself.
She's cool, but she's just
She
sleeping all the time.
Oh, she is, yeah, a couple of times, yeah.
I'm envious. Well, thank you everybody hugely for your generosity and your openness in talking to us today. And yeah, we look forward to many more years of Kíla music in particular. And yes, see you all again soon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and thank you. Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.